Hello, everyone. Hello, fellow translators all over the world. Today, we're going to talk about translation tests with Natali Lekka.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Natali. And before I introduce Natali and myself, why a vlog on translation tests? First of all, because it's a controversial issue in the translation industry. Usually it is not thoroughly discussed during our years in translation training at college or university, etc. Because many people have sort of silent thoughts on this issue, and by silent or quiet I mean that they don't openly discuss it, because it's kind of taken for granted that we translators, freelance translators, have to take free translation tests in order to take part in the onboarding process with all translation companies in the translation world. And because we think it's a user-friendly content. I mean, you can listen to this without seeing us. You can watch it and listen at the same time. And somehow we are trying to spark a conversation. Natali has been doing her part in this, and we'll talk about it later. Among us translators, also, translation company owners, if they would want to join in the comments. But the idea is to talk about it, right? Also, why a webinar with Natali Lekka? Before I introduce her, well, she shows a consistent content marketing strategy through her posts on LinkedIn. And last week in particular, she's posted actually an article that's really interesting. You can Google it or look for it on LinkedIn. She's raised the issue of translation tests and sparked a real discussion among some colleagues around the world recently. She agrees on this being a necessary conversation, like me. She also creates content and training for other translators. She has her own stand as regards this issue and her own questions as well, like myself. And it would be a challenge for her, and for me it actually is a challenge for us both, to create content in the form of video, because we're normally used to doing it in writing. And finally, our goals. We are trying to kind of denaturalize the idea that free translation tests are the norm, the standard in the translation industry. That we want to continue to spread the word and spark a long-term conversation with our peers on this issue. We never know who will be watching, so that could happen. Gain visibility, both of us have a good time and learn through discussing, through exploring different perspectives and points of view on this issue of translation tests, create valuable content for you, which she and I and you can share with the translation community, to challenge ourselves, like I said, and to stream a spontaneous debate on this sensible subject. So, well, hi again, Natali. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for the introduction.
You're welcome. Where are you based?
I'm based in the northeast of England. So I don't know if you know Newcastle.
No.
Newcastle.
I would love
to. Just a few miles off Newcastle, but in Northumberland. So I'm at the borders with Scotland.
Oh, do you hear a lot of rhotic R's from like the Scottish accent, or is it totally not influenced your area?
They've got their own accent here. Well, they've got the Geordie accent, as they call it, in Newcastle. It's a different accent from Scottish accent.
Right.
So every region in the UK has its own accent.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the language.
I would love to have like a direct experience with that, because I'm into accents, like many translators. Well, I will introduce you now professionally, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, So Natali Lekka has a MA in Translation Studies from the University of Warwick and has been translating professionally from English and French into Greek since 2008. She specializes in marketing, advertising, and transcreation, and she is also a bilingual content writer and feature writer for brands and publications. In 2020, she launched Content Writing for Translators, an e-course that helps translators branch out to content writing.
Exactly, very well said. Thank you for the introduction.
You're welcome. And just to remind our audience now and then by the end as well, but where can people find your content online?
Well, my biggest platform is LinkedIn. This is where I am most active. I've got a page on Facebook. I'm on Twitter as well, but most people know me from LinkedIn. So I do post regularly, almost every day. So you can't miss me, basically. If you are in my network, you can't miss me.
It's true. You can't from experience.
That's a good thing, though. That means visibility, right?
Yeah.
And you can't miss any of the updates I put out about the courses. Or you can obviously look me up, Natali Lekka, on LinkedIn, and you can read more in the about, which is where I've put, you know, the links for the courses and anything else you want to know about me.
Okay, thank you. I'll briefly introduce myself as well. Hi there. I'm Delfina Morganti Hernández. I am an English-Spanish transcreator, copywriter, and reviewer, specialized as well in marketing and advertising. I also work in the fields of human resources and games. And I help brands succeed in the Latin American and Argentinian markets in Spanish by crafting texts whose excellence translates into value for their community. In 2019, I launched a one-month marketing strategy and communication program for translators in Spanish called Asesoría en Comunicación y Marketing Estratégico, the ACME. So as you can see, Natali and I, we're kind of like, although in different markets, also kind of like working with similar segments, we could say, right? With translators and with kinds of
digital marketing.
Digital marketing, yes, creative fields. So I somehow feel at ease with Natali because we found those points in common. And well, back to our subject for today, translation tests. Natali, you recently posted on LinkedIn about this issue, and this kind of triggered a discussion. Could you sort of sum up your key thoughts there in your community?
About a week ago, I posted on LinkedIn an article, a post exactly about free tests, and that was inspired by the fact that on that same week, I had received 2 emails from 2 different agencies contacting me. So it was them who contacted me, it wasn't the other way around. And they said they saw me online, they were very interested in me, they wanted to onboard me. Am I interested? I said yes. We spoke with them. They agreed on my fees. We started on the onboarding process, filling in, documents, giving information, talking about other clients I've worked with. And at the end, they told me, oh, but you know what? Our procedures say that if you want to join our team, you need to sit for a test. And that was the end. Although I went through this procedure, that was the end, because I explained to them that I don't sit for the tests. I don't sit for tests for filing purposes, because that's what they wanted to do. They just wanted to file me as one of their translators, because maybe, possibly, in the future, they might have some work. And that's something I don't do anymore. I used to do it when I was starting out, and then I realized that it's actually not a good process, and it's not the way forward. And I will explain later on why I say that. So I posted this, my experience, and I posted this on LinkedIn. And I had lots of reaction from the community. And even now, about a week later, I still have people reacting to it, liking it, commenting, or even sharing, which means that this is a very important subject for our community. People are talking about it all the time. And in it, what I was basically trying to find out is why is it translators that get asked to do to sit for free tests? My question was, you know, other freelancers, like a freelance musician, for example, or a freelance web designers, are they also asked to sit for tests, free tests? I don't think so. I've only heard it for us, because I'm also a writer, and as writers, no one ever tells me, oh, but for me to hire you, I need you to sit a free writing test. They ask for a sample of my writing, right? But why does that not work with translators? Because as translators, a lot of us have samples as well, sample translations, but for some reason, no one is willing to accept them, and they just want us to sit for tests. And that was my initial question, and I put it down, and obviously there was, you know, great, you know, feedback from the community.
And when I saw that post, because I also have sort of a mixed blessing there, and my own stand, of course, I couldn't just read and not stop by. I left some comments there. I read a few. First of all, I celebrate your idea of bringing this up, whether or not it was inspired by your personal experience. It's like I said, a necessary conversation. So I thank you for it, and that's why I also messaged you in case you wanted to like do this, right? Have our own discussion, but somehow make it publicly known. Well, you have like you brought up several questions. In my case, like you, I used to do it when I was starting out. I don't do it anymore either, and I don't think it's fair. I think there are too many risks associated with this procedure. Somehow, it's like the scale is all, you know, for the company or the agency and against us in terms of risks. I also see, you know, that there are many translators, not just people who are starting out, who think that, well, we have to do it, right? It's like part of the process, so nobody questions it. I mean, not nobody, I'm generalizing, over generalizing, but most people don't question it, at least in my country, my culture, and I think that should change if we want the industry to change for the better, to strike a balance, right? Because I understand that companies are taking risks when they hire someone they don't know, you know, in advance. But also, like you said, there are alternatives to know the professional through their work if they want to do that. So you said it's not the best way, something like that.
I agree with.
Yeah.
Yes. First of all, let me say this happens all the time. It wasn't just the two. Obviously, that's what happened last week. I had two agencies contacting me, and this basically fueled my need to write about it. But this happens all the time. Not all agencies do it, though. That needs to be said. And this is why I think this is not the industry standard, because there are some very good translation agencies who never ask you to sit for the test, or if they do ask you, it's because their end client wants you to sit for the test, and the agencies are willing to pay for it, right? My issue with this is that if we have to sit for the test, it becomes very one-sided. It almost feels like we are employees, they are employees, you know, in a way, without having the employee benefits. And so I don't know, I don't like it. My advice would be to treat it as any other marketing activity. So we are, you know, as translators, we are business owners or solopreneurs.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs, but I call it solopreneurs because we're just a one-person business.
Yeah.
And we do certain marketing activities. One is like, you know, have a website, you know, update your LinkedIn profile, contact agencies. So treat sitting for tests as a marketing activity. If you do too much of a certain marketing activity and you see that there are no results, or there are very, very few results, then just stop doing it. Don't do it anymore. If I have a look at my current list of clients right now, I see that my best clients never asked me to sit for a test. Whereas the clients that did ask me to sit for a test never became my clients. They were agencies that asked me to sit for a test. They never sent me any work, or they might send me one small job per year. So this is what led me to think that it's actually sitting for translation test is actually not a good use of my time and resources. So I stopped doing it.
Okay, so on the one hand, it's not profitable. On the other hand, there are too many risks. You said it's one-sided. Let's just define, because you said my best clients, and I think I see what you mean, but just in case, so that it's clear, when you say best clients, you're referring to the ones that are your highest paying clients?
The one give me work as well.
With a steady workflow.
Somebody, yeah, if you work with somebody once a year and it's not a big job either,
right,
you can't even really put them in your client list, or they're like my once in a year client.
Right.
When I say best client, the regular clients,
okay,
and the ones that give me interesting projects. That's what I mean. And incidentally, 80% of them have come from LinkedIn. So I need to say that as well. This is 80% of them have come from LinkedIn, and they've never asked me to sit for the test. What they did is, obviously they asked to see my credentials. Maybe they checked my LinkedIn profile. They saw recommendations, you know, or they asked to talk to an ex-client of mine or somebody else I work with, but they never asked me for the test. So I think translators should consider that there are clients that never ask you for the test.
And that we have options.
It's not an industry standard.
Right, and that we have options, and that we're kind of, well, smart enough, between inverted commas, to, you know, optimize our LinkedIn profile, find out how to do it, because there are lots of resources on how to do it on the web. This can happen, right? And this can somehow change how clients find you. Clients end up finding you because of your steady, consistent, trustworthy online presence. Of course, that's not something easy to do, but you can do it. I mean, Natali has been doing it. I don't know. I mean, it's a good example of just showing that there are options, right? And it's been true for me too, that my best clients, and I define them as you, I also include this factor of rates, right? Good rates that, you know, I'm comfortable working with, and a steady workflow, and projects in my specialty fields and stuff. They found me through LinkedIn. And in fact, with one of them who did ask for me to take a test, I said, okay, I can take a test, but it will have to be a paid test. I mean, you will have, somehow I said it in a very polite way, but clearly, if you want me to take a test, as this has a cost for me, I will have to charge for it, right? At least my minimum hourly fee. Something that will compensate me for the time I'm taking with my value, right? All the experience, all the training I've done, and everything that each of us can have as professional translators. Well, I can invest it. I'm interested in you too. Thank you for reaching out, but I will take a test as long as you pay me for it. And I risked, you know, I risked a lot by saying that, because I was secretly interested in this client as well, for many reasons. And they said yes. Okay, so I'm not saying that everyone will agree to paying for a translation test. I'm saying it can happen as long as you have like all these other strategies in place. You said you have your own professional website, me too. We invest a lot in creating content, in showing our skills through writing, through perhaps translation samples, through being there, right? And that's a long-term investment, I think. You never know who is watching, you never know who is reading, you never know what brand, what translation company, what direct client might see what you're posting about and say, that's what I need, or this person has a skill that I would like to use for my business. I would like to reach out to her. So I think it's a strategic decision that we can make, and it pays in the mid-long run, I should say. What do you think?
I agree. There are two things I do when somebody asks me to sit for a test. One is what you've already said. I'd say, yeah, I can do it, but it will have to be paid. So it will be at my minimum fee. The second thing I might say is that, yes, I am willing to sit for the test, but I need to know that there's confirmed work afterwards. So in other words, a client has already the project and they're contacting me because they want to, hire the best translator for this job. In that case, I could, especially if I'm interested in the project and I know I can do a good job, in that case, I am willing to sit for a free test. And hopefully, if I pass it, obviously, I will have the job, okay? But what I don't want to do, and I don't do anymore, is sitting for tests just for filing purposes, just for an agency to add me to their database together with another 50 English into Greek translators. And this is what translators who are listening to us right now should know, that they're obviously not the only ones who are sitting for the test. When an agency is asking me to sit for a test, there's probably another 30 maybe in your language combination that has sat for the test. So if you have the job, why do you think they would give it to you and not to the 30 previous translators that sat for the test and passed the test? Do you see why I'm saying that there's not much point in sitting for the test? Because the volume of people asking to be part of an agency is far greater than the amount of work that the agency can give you.
Yes, and also you're not sure about the workflow, if they will hire you. There's a lot of like internal competition that only the company can see and oversee. And at the same time, it's been true for many translators that they've done a test and then they've realized, because they did it, they took it as the industry standard, they never questioned the length of the text, asked whether it would be in their specialty field, anything, and then they realized that it was part of like a large live project, real project for the company, which the company was kind of like completing through these small chunks that the company would distribute among translators. It's an awful practice, but it's been true for some of our colleagues, and that's one of the risks that we take when we say, yes, okay, no problem, I can complete a free test. Just passively, right? And I think it's an awful thing to go through. You're actually virtually working and not being paid for it, and so many others do. And I'm not saying all companies do this, but it's been true for some.
The problem is, a lot of translators don't even hear back from the agencies. They don't even get feedback. And I've been trying to think, why is that? And I think the reason is what I said, is because there are so many translators willing to sit for the test. And for example, the other day, somebody posted on Facebook that they were looking for, let's say, an English into Spanish translator for, like, an agency is looking an English to Spanish translator, and there were more than 100 comments underneath this post, right? I imagine that this agency says, oh, I've got 100 translators now, let's all ask them to sit for a test. What makes you think that you're going to ever get a feedback from that, because who is going to sit down and go through all the tests, 100 tests, so many tests? This is physically impossible. And the other thing I wanted to say, that was like my experience, which really made me almost angry with this process of sitting for tests. A lot of agencies, they have like a completely automatic way of ordering you. Basically, you go online and you just fill in your details, and there's no, no connection, no touch with any human. You never talk with anyone. You just go online, you fill in your details. At the end, they ask you to sit for the test, right? And only after you've taken the test, you can submit your application. Well, I did that once with an agency. I never ever heard anything back from them. And 2 weeks later, I contacted them and asked them, so what's happened? Have I passed? What's the feedback? And their answer was, oh, yeah, we received your application, but we don't have anyone to check Greek, right? So I sat for the test, and there was nobody who can actually check Greek in that agency. So that, for me, this is a waste of time, of time and resources. And these are the kind of things that make me think that translation tests don't work, because you put in a lot of effort and get very little back. It's like I said before, it's like a marketing activity. And I invite every translator who's listening to this right now to treat it as a marketing activity. If you do too much of it, but you don't see any results, just stop it. Stop it. It's not really going to bring anything.
I agree. I agree with your suggestions. I'll be taking some notes. Well, you've just shared a negative experience. I'll share my own. There are very stubborn people. I don't mean to judge them. Sorry, but I mean, there are people who will think, okay, but no, I mean, I'm going to try my luck anyway. I'm starting out. I want to do it. All right. For those people who want to still do it, when you do it, please don't just accept the test. Ask questions and claim stuff like, okay, yes, I can take a test, but try this. You will have to pay me my minimum fee. If the agency comes back and say, no, we're sorry, unfortunately, we don't pay tests, would you still be willing to do it? That's your choice. And be fully aware of the fact that nobody is imposing anything on you. If you agree to take a free test, this might be obvious, but it isn't, because then we hear lots of people just blaming it on the others. But I mean, you can take full responsibility and say, okay, it's okay, I'm interested in this client, so because I want to, I will take a free test. When you do, ask the agency or the project manager or the recruiter, whoever you're talking with, about the length of the test, because these can give you a warning sign or not. I mean, if it's too long, if it's longer than, I don't know, maybe 200 words or so, chances are this is not a free test that you're just completing as a test for filing purposes, like Natali explained. You're doing it as part of other people's work, and that will be sold to an end client, right? So be careful with the length. Ask or claim that you will expect feedback, and that's one of your conditions, even though this is a free test. I mean, somehow try to minimize the risks. This is what I'm talking about, if you are into doing tests. So ask if you will receive feedback and when you may expect the results. Be careful if this is a free test. Be careful with the length and be careful with the deadlines. I mean, why, if it is a free test that you will be setting aside time, you will have to do it under a deadline, right? Why does the company, if they do, ask you to do it in 2 business days, in 10 business days? Be careful with that deadline, length, feedback, and when you may expect results. You have the right to ask and to set your own conditions as well. And as regards my experience, sorry, Natali, please.
Did you go ahead with your experience, or you want to go ahead with your experience first?
Yes, I just wanted to comment on my experience briefly. maybe like this was about a year and a half ago or so, I stayed like 2 hours or 3 hours maybe on a Friday evening when I was already so tired. But okay, I had accepted and to take a free test with a company with whom I had already discussed rates. I forgot to say that when you take a test, try to discuss rates in advance. And they had agreed to my dates, rates. They had found me on LinkedIn. They seemed to see my value. We had sort of discussed a few details on Skype, blah, blah, blah. Everything seemed okay. So I took the decision to take this free test. It was in my field. So I loved the idea of working with them, blah, blah. They had given me a deadline of 10 days and I purposefully completed the test on the last day. Even though I was very exhausted and everything. I sent it and then I got back the results and they were happy with it and blah, blah. And then they said, okay, so for the project we were talking about, marketing project, you will be paid this rate. I was like, but that's not the rate we had agreed on, right? Mm-hmm. So, and they say, well, but this is the best rate we can offer you because of our budget with our client. And I said, but that's not the rate we had agreed on. I mean, we had agreed on something, right? It was in writing and everything. And they say, okay, but well, it would be a pity because you have passed the test. And I say, I'm not working with those rates, right? And that was the end of it. They didn't even come back with a reply. Of course, I didn't do a follow-up. I realized this was not the kind of client I wanted to work with anymore. But what I'm saying is, even when you have all these precautions, you take all these precautions of discussing length, rates, deadlines, blah, blah, and negotiating first and taking the free test second, there is no guarantee, not just about the workflow, but also that they will respect what you have discussed. There are lots of different kinds of people in the world, in our industry too, so they may not be true, stay true to what they promised. And it was I was really angry because, you know, I felt completely powerless, helpless. And I kind of, especially with myself, I mean, like, I know about marketing, I shouldn't have taken this decision. Why didn't I see this coming? It was like, pouring scorn on myself. I couldn't help it, and that was the last turning point, we could say, with me and this subject, this issue. And I said, I'm not taking any more tests unless they are paid. Doesn't matter if they don't come back, at least they pay me for the test, right?
I mean, that was a dishonest company. It was a dishonest company, because if they agree on something and then they go back on the word, they were a dishonest company. Luckily, I've never had anything like that, but I will agree with you when you said it's very important to set your conditions. If you agree to take a test, it's very important that you also have a say in this procedure, in this process. Otherwise, it feels very much one-sided. We might be the ones sending a CV or, you know, maybe asking to be added on their database, but the relationship between a professional and an agency is equal. It's an equal partnership. It's no, we're not their employees. So if they want you to do something, then you have the right to say, I will do it, but these are my conditions. So in my case, I always agree on a rate before I go through the hiring process, because there's nothing wrong than going through the hiring process, having to fill in all hundreds of documents that they have, signing NDAs, share personal information, and then at the end you find out that they cannot hire you anymore, and they cannot afford you. There's nothing worse than finding out they cannot afford you. The second one is, if I'm going to sit for the test, it has to be a maximum of 250 words. That's it. That's where I draw the line. 250 words. And the third, when they ask me, oh yes, but we want you to do it by this date, I tell them, I'm sorry, but if this is a free test, as you can understand, I, as a professional, I have to give priority to paid work. So I'm going to do my paid work first, and then I'm going to do your test, unless you're willing to pay, right? Unless you're willing to pay. And so I basically take my time and I do it whenever I want to, not when they want to.
Congrats.
Yeah.
I think this, I mean, this is why I wanted to have this discussion as well. Because there's this myth still widespread among certain translator communities around the world that we have to take a test, that the test has to be free. It's like naturalized, implied. We don't question it. Also, we are not empowered. We don't feel empowered like you are, like, well, sort of am. I mean, because of experience, because we've been watching, like, you know, carefully spotting these things and stuff. And we are not trained. I'm not sure about your how it went in your educational background, but in my case, when I was training as a translator, marketing was not a word among, you know, the academic the teachers and the students, and we seldom discussed tests. So many people just go out and they, as they start out, they are asked to do this, and they discuss it with their peers. They see they have already done it, so they think that this is the only way. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, but of course we can come back to other points that I know you have, and me too, was, okay, so if I don't want to do a translation test because I recognize it as very risky, unfair, or whatever, what can I do to prove my expertise, my skills, everything, you know, my experience, if I have it, or just my eagerness to do my best with my degree and stuff.
Yeah. I wanted to mention a few things that other translators wrote as comments to the post. I posted this week because I thought they were very interesting, so I wrote them down.
Okay.
And maybe you can add your input into that. I'm not going to mention names, but a colleague said that for whatever reason, people are more willing to believe an illustrator, for example, when they give a sample, right? When somebody says, or a writer, this is a portfolio, this is a sample of my writing. People tend to believe that, yes, this is your writing, or yes, you've drawn this. But for some reason, some agencies maybe don't believe that the samples, translation samples, have been done by us. And this is why he thinks, in his opinion, this is why they ask translators to sit for a test, right? Another translator said maybe we should maybe create an NDA, or maybe a kind of legal document that forces agencies to give feedback, because for her, the problem is that she never hears back from tests. She doesn't know if she's done well or if she's not done well, and she feels that there's no progress, because without knowing if you've done well, you don't know how to progress or what to change. Somebody else said that our profession is not well regulated, maybe in most countries anyway. So there are a lot of people that decide to become translators, and that could sometimes have disastrous results. And this is why agencies think that, oh, maybe we should ask translators to sit for the test. I don't know. What do you think about all these?
Yes. I will take first this idea of disastrous results with translators that are not exactly professional, or, well, they produce that kind of results. And I will add that I recently had an interview with an agency owner who told me, when I told her my take on translation tests, because she had asked me to take one, I said, no problem, it will have to be a paid test. And she said, she was like silent for a few seconds, and she said, okay, I see your point, she said, but you know why we take tests? It's because sometimes people sell their services very well, they have great marketing skills online, but then when it comes to producing results, to actually translate and are working with us and stuff, they don't provide the quality we expect. They don't have attention to detail. They don't read, I don't know, the glossary. They don't follow the style guide or something like that. And I said, okay, well, I see, but still I should require you to pay for my test. So I kind of see that point when it's an honest stand there, that they are also taking a few risks, but we have options we can provide them with, like a sample, like a portfolio. And I think if they distrust that we are the authors of this work, this material, well, what I do is protect it with the copyright symbol. Sometimes I publish it, so it's posts that I've published and I'm written and localized myself from English into Spanish or vice versa. Sometimes it's content that I've asked an author whether I could translate it as a pro bono work just to add it to my portfolio. They said yes, it's in my field, so I can sort of like give evidence that this is my translation and this is their work, and you know, somehow get the licenses, we could say, in terms of intellectual property, to showcase our work as such, as our own. And I think that's the way I found to give credibility. But also, if the agency is already distrusting me from the word go, well, there's not much I can say about it, right? I mean, we can have a conversation as long as we are following the felicity principles. I don't remember the author who established this, the linguist, but I mean, we are having a conversation based on a few principles that we take for granted. We are being honest, I don't know, right? We're being relevant and stuff. So what can I say? I mean, I have my credentials, I have testimonials, I can bring other people in, their voices, to give credit to what I'm saying. But if you're still distrusting me, then I mean, let's just stop wasting our time and stop talking.
These are very good tips. These are very good tips. My problem is that it's only translators that they ask free tests from. Other professions don't have to go through that. Like any profession, even from like a plumber showing up at your home, you never ask them to do work for free just to see whether they can do the job, can they?
Right. Or a taxi driver. Oh, could you please take me for free just a few blocks to see how you drive and whether I would like to go hiring you?
Or anyone. Somebody wrote on a comment on that post that I posted them a week ago. Oh yes, but they ask designers to provide with a free sketch, especially if the project is big. To me, that means that there's already a project waiting at the end of the line, right? And they're just looking for the right collaborators. In that case, I would, like I said before, I'd be willing maybe to sit for a short test if there is already a job waiting. And I know that if I pass the test, I'm going to get the job. But that's never the case with us, is it? It's always for filing purposes. So the agency says, oh, that's my procedure, and you have to do it so I can add you in my database. Okay, they're talking about their procedures, but we are a business as well, and we have our own procedures. Every business has its own procedures, right? And our procedures could be that we don't want to work for free. And I don't think that's irrational at all.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And, you know, when you said, two things. First of all, other professionals. In my country, copywriters may be asked to take a test. I'm even more suspicious about those tests than about translation tests, because it's really not at all regulated, and you can never know what happened with your text and stuff. Please of all, think of charging for it, because most copywriters are doing it for free. We don't have like a copywriting school or a creative writing university like in other countries. So it's like, it's a very kind of not regulated, like it's a profession. As for designers, I have a friend who's a creative designer, and he's been asked to provide a portfolio. I always told him, please protect it with something that shows it's your brand, your own personal stuff, and he does. And when it comes to filing procedures, I also think it's for filing purposes, sorry. I think that also there's another implied risk that when you take a test and the company uses it for filing, they are also using it for, I think, pricing purposes. I mean, depending on your rate, right? And my rate, they will create a scale and award internally the translators, potential providers with a rate, and depending on that, with a grade, and depending on that grade or that score, they will then propose a certain rate, right? And it will always be to the company's benefit. In the case of these agencies, I'm not saying that all of them work like this. We can work with agencies who are like this. But when that happens, the translator loses absolutely all power of negotiation, of communicating their value, of setting rates that will reflect their value proposition. So that's, I think, another implied risk. It's not just for filing, it's also for them telling you how much they will pay you for your services, which are, by the way, as you said, Natali, professional services, and we are a business and we have our prices, right? We don't tell the plumber, okay, based on your performance during this 5-minute test, I will pay you this. I mean, he would say, no, these are my prices. You want my services, you have to pay this price, right? So I think there is a lack of empowerment.
Yeah, and also something that I've just thought about it now. If let's say 20 translators sit in the same language combination, sit for the test, let's say all 20 pass, let's say, for example, okay? And so for an agency, they've got 20 equal translators. They've got 20 translators of, you know, equal capability because they've all passed the same test, let's say. Who would they go for? Probably they would go for the cheapest one, wouldn't they? That would make sense. If they think that I can get the same amount of work as that first translator that charges 3 times what this translator charges. So if, let's say, translator A charges 3 times more than translator B, but both of them have passed the same test, the agency would probably go with the translator that charges the least, right? So it becomes very much a matter of like a race to the bottom in a way. Who charges less? Right. Who is good enough to pass the test, but who charges less?
Right.
You've been in this business for 10 plus years and you're trying to raise your fee. You might find yourself that you'll never get any work.
Yes, and differentiation would work at the level of price, like you said, and it's like it's a never-ending race unless you want to stop, and when you stop, you don't get the work. Where do we go from here?
Go one more comment to make, because somebody else wrote on my post. Like I said, there have been so many comments on that post that if we fear that an agency might want to use our translation as part of their project, basically, and so they want to get free work from us, an idea would be to submit the test in a non-editable form. But I've been trying to find out what kind of format would that be, because a PDF can become editable very easily. Yeah. So I'm not sure how that would work, but this is something that was suggested to me in the comments. So don't send it in Word, send it in a locked PDF, maybe. Yeah. So if they want to use your test as part of a project, they won't be able to. So something like that.
That's a good idea. I hadn't thought of it.
I hadn't either, but I still don't know if this is possible. A plain PDF is very easy to turn into Word. So
even when it's password protected or something like that?
I don't know, because that's what I'm saying. I haven't tried with a locked a locked PDF.
No,
So
neither have I. Neither have I. I
no,
don't know,
but that's something to consider for anyone who wants to sit for a test.
Yes, a locked PDF. I'm not sure, but I think that the idea that I was mentioning before about having the content that you use as a sample, not a test, but a sample, posted on your own website, signed by the author of the source text and by you as the translator, and with some copyright legal line or something, could enhance this sort of protection. I mean, if someone wants to plagiarize your content, they can easily do it, unfortunately. I mean, with the web and everyone being able to create their own stuff, we also have this disadvantage. But it will take them longer, and it will be harder for them to do it. So they might consider it twice. So I think that having it published or posted somewhere with the right copyright line could help. I was also thinking, how can we give ourselves credibility beyond our own voice, beyond our own brand materials, my CV, the test I've completed, my sample, my portfolio, through testimonials. I see that testimonials work very well, at least from my experience, especially if they are not anonymous, especially if you can get the person who gives you feedback on your work, even if it was pro bono work or something like that, if you can get them to sign it, full name, and include their role, I think it adds a lot of credibility, and it could add even more credibility if you have these testimonials embedded in your profile as recommendations on LinkedIn, for example. They somehow authorize you or validate you, we could say, as a professional. And I think it would reduce this issue of companies distrusting what we can do for them. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I agree. I think these are really, really valuable tips. And I invite anyone who is listening to this, vlog right now to leave their comments, and because I'm quite interested to get feedback on what we've been discussing for an hour, to see whether people agree with this, what they think, if they have anything else to suggest. For me, it's all about a good sample, translation sample, and recommendations. Obviously, besides agencies, most agencies ask for at least two recommendations anyway. So they ask for recommendations and they want a free test on top. I mean, that's a bit too much.
It's a lot,
really.
Yes.
It makes you wonder why they ask it, really. And this has been basically the reason why we started discussing this. Exactly this, because it becomes redundant at some point.
Yes, and it's all guarantees for them, a very few for us. Because like I said, through my negative experience, even when I had discussed things in writing and all, they changed my rates afterwards. So I was really disappointed.
It's one-sided, and that's what I don't like. One-sided. Yeah. If I wanted to be in a business, where everything is one-sided, I would have stayed in the office job I was doing 15 years ago. I would have been an employee, but I decided to be the master of my own business. And being the master of your own business means that you set the rates and you set the conditions. And this is how it is. And if an agency doesn't work with you, it is just one business not wanting to work with your business. But there are thousands of businesses you can work with. So you just move on. It's like a real life, we're not going to be friends with everyone. You can't just, be friends with somebody, you just find somebody else. I mean, this is how we should treat business as well. And we should never forget that this is an equal partnership. That's what it is.
I agree. I totally agree. Equality. Equality, because that's what we are. I think also, as you said, we're masters of our own business. We're not just masters of our own business when we say, oh, I get to have a, I get to take a walk in the park in the middle of the afternoon when I don't have this 9-to-5 job. So that's a key advantage. I mean, with advantages, with all the beauty of freelancing, whatever that may mean to you in particular, being a digital nomad or whatever, comes responsibility. You own your business. You have to pay a lot of attention to risk. And risk may translate into so many different things, right? I'm not sure about the term in English, if it's called cost of opportunity cost. When you're doing something in terms of economically speaking, when you're doing something, when you're taking a project and you're not doing something else, well, that project has a cost. Is it worth it? When you're taking a free test, you're not putting, do you know the term, Natali?
It's not coming to me right now, but okay. I understand exactly what you're saying. Yeah, the return, basically, there's no much return on the effort you put in, because you're using that time, instead of you working on a paid project, you're using that time to work for free with no real guarantee that you get a project.
Exactly, yes. And well, I think we have to also bear in mind that it's our choice, because again, there are people, and I see this a lot, that they say, I want to still do it. I want to start out. I need the experience. Okay, beware of all the things that we mentioned before, right? Right, deadline length, ask for feedback, follow up.
And treat it like a marketing, treat it like any other marketing activity. If you keep on doing it and you don't see any results, or very, very few results, it's not worth doing it. Stop it and do something else. Work on your LinkedIn profile, for example. Yeah.
Read Natali's article on how to optimize your profile. It was very inspiring and also enlightening. I just want to add one last thing on my part, which is Steve Jobs' quote that I try to remind myself of every day, which is, in general, not just for my professional life, but also my personal life. Deciding what not to do, these are Steve Jobs' words. Deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what to do.
Absolutely, I agree.
I think it kind of sums up what we've been discussing.
And from my part, I don't have anything else to add, because I think we've been through this in thorough detail. So,
but we're open to feedback.
Yes.
Yeah, and we would love to. Actually, this was one of our goals, to spark a conversation, to talk about it, to make it visible that this debate, it's not just between us, Natali and me. We know, and she's got the evidence through her post, that there are many people actually wondering, or kind of finding themselves in the middle of this issue and conversation. So we'd love to hear from you, your comments, questions, whether you agree, you disagree, you hate us. No, I hope you don't. But we'd love to know what you're thinking, and keep talking.
Right.
Well, it's been all for now. I don't have a name for this vlog yet, Natali. We can agree on the title for it afterwards. This is not something we've kind of very much thought about, except for the outline for today. We're not sure if this will continue to be like a series of some vlogs together or anything, but in any case, I want to thank you a lot for accepting my proposal to do this, with all the challenges involved, distance and time zone. It's a Saturday for us, you and your time, your afternoon, my morning, everything. Thank you for that entrepreneurial spirit, for everything you share on LinkedIn. We haven't worked together, but I'm a follower of your content, and I really enjoy reading it. And I encourage our colleagues to follow you because of that. I think we can all nurture each other, one another, through that kind of content. So
thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and hopefully till next time, or else we'll be reading one another's comments below. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.